Hey there, I'm Cindy Kochis, and I am the host of Pen to Paper Press podcast. I sit down with best-selling authors, writers, editors, publishers, and creative souls in my studio to talk about the process of developing our stories to completing our works of art. Each episode, just like this one, is an opportunity for us to explore mindsets, pearls of wisdom, and the experiences that began our journey as a writer from the moment we put pen to paper. In this episode, I am sharing the second half of my conversation with Deborah Kevin. She is an editor and publisher and a published author. She is the founder and chief inspiration officer of Highlander Press. I'm going to pick up this podcast a few minutes prior to where I ended it last week. There's some information here that's worthy of being heard again. All right, enjoy, and thank you. Because we're human. We're perfectly being human.
I love that. We're perfectly being human. I accept that.
Good, because I don't know where that came from.
Nice download.
Yes, I will be writing that out. That will be a quote that I put somewhere. Look for that quote.
Hashtag trademark.
Yeah, right. Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes. Oh, if we could, if it was only that easy, but
right.
and and if we were to go back through and look to see if anybody else has said that prior, and I'm not that copyright infringement thing.
Sure.
Somebody else has probably said it.
But not like you.
Exactly. Oh, you and I, we are now best friends. Thank you, Debbie. Oh, Highlander Press is a hybrid publishing company. And one of the questions that comes up is, what is a hybrid publishing company? And of course, yeah, and depending on who you ask, the answer is different. So how do you explain because I don't want you, it's not necessary for you to explain what everyone is, because they have different roles and different mindsets and stuff. So how do you explain what your hybrid publishing company is to a writer who's just beginning their journey?
Sure. So let me just give the bookends, if I might. So traditional publishing is what most people think about when they think about being published. So that's one of the soon-to-be big four publishing houses. Hachette, there's a myriad, Penguin Random House. And that requires you to have an agent. You must have an agent to be published through one of those. And here's how that works. There's a lot of gatekeepers. The agent you have to attack the agent. The agent has to love your book enough to then pitch it to the publishing houses. The publishing houses have to then say, that's going to fit with the books that we're looking for. And then they do all the marketing projections, and they might give you a little advance, and that advance is against future royalties. Right. So that's what that means. So they're going to give you a deal. They're going to give you an advance. They're going to license your book in a variety of different ways. Your agent's going to get royalties, but your agent's going to get a split of that advance, and he or she's going to get a split of your royalties. So your royalties could be halved based upon whatever agreement you have with an agent. So there's a lot. So the point is, you get advance, you get published. They don't do the marketing for you, is what most people think. Is like, oh, I got my book licensed and they're going to do all of the marketing for me. They're going to send me on these book tours. And that's just not the case anymore, right? Traditional publishing has been very much stagnant since the late 1800s, other than the inception of agents who now have that sort of gatekeeper role. So that's sort of traditional publishing. There's a lot of gatekeepers. It takes time. It takes a long time once your book is picked up by an agent. By the time it's picked up by a publisher, by the time it's actually in bookstores and available for sale, could be up to 3 years. So it's a long lead time, lots of gatekeepers. On the other hand, is you have self-publishing, which is fast. It's as fast as you can make it. You have all 100% of the decision making. You have 100% of the risk, 100% of the reward. But you also have a lot to learn. You've got to learn how to market a book, how to show up with a book. You still want to make sure you get that book professionally edited, because that's the number one thing that gives self-published books a bad name. And the second thing that gives self-published books a bad name is a self-done cover. And unless you're a graphic designer who specializes in book covers, do not, I repeat, do not create your own book cover. And so self-publishing, I think, is a great model for a lot of people. It really works. You can make a lot of money. You have complete autonomy, which is really lovely. Mm-hmm. And then there's this plane of opportunity, right? So anything from a vanity publisher to a mid-sized publisher that acts very similar to a traditional publisher. And so I say we're a hybrid press because we're kind of the best of all of those worlds. And we're designed in a way that there's a small fee to work with us, but what you get for that fee is 6 months of classes that teach you how to be an author who's selling books. We meet weekly. We talk about social media. We talk about an author business plan. We talk about how to get on podcasts like this. We talk about, how to present yourself to the press, how to get your books in libraries and bookstores and do a book launch and all of those things. Plus, we do all the heavy lifting. We actually professionally edit your book. We have the cover designed. We do the interior layout. We find those keywords, the categories, the pricing. We find that sweet spot that help more eyeballs get on your book.
Right.
And we build a team to help you do it. Like, it's just the most delightful, yummy, delicious experience. But we also pay royalties. So that's why we publish about 20, 25 books a year. So we're on the mid-size range of a publisher. And so that's how we operate. So I call that a hybrid model, meaning that we are collaborative with the authors. We don't just dictate how it's going to work. And we're there. We hold their hands through the whole process.
I like how you just described that, placing the bookends and then sharing what's in the middle. I like how you did that. That is very beneficial because of the fact that there is so much confusion out there. What do I do? How do I do this? And what do they do? And if they do it, what am I responsible for? So in your experience, what surprises you, or excuse me, let me start that question over. In your experience, what surprises most authors about the publishing experience?
I think that what surprises most people is that they think, I've written a book and okay, it's done. They don't realize that that's just step one of your book life, right? Because then you've got the editing, you've got the publishing, you've got the launching, you've got the ongoing promotion.
Right.
Excuse me. And many times when people expend all that energy to get to the book where it's launching, you've got your book birthday, you're celebrating, hooray, there's a party, you're exhausted. And so you stop. And not only do you stop in the short term, but you stop promoting in the long term. And so you see these spikes of sales, and then they just tail off suddenly. And what you want to do is understand the ways that you can market your book that aren't salesy, that aren't like, that guy in Washington Square Park, but that can actually help people find your book. Because that's why you wrote it. To
be seen, to be read, to be enjoyed,
to make a difference. Yeah. And so I think a lot of people underestimate, number one, the effort that goes into the whole process, not just the writing. And they let their exhaustion over that whole process sort of be like, I hear time and time again, I had no idea what went into publishing a book. I had no idea.
Yes.
Because
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, because traditional publishers don't want you to have an idea.
Yes.
It's like Oz behind the curtain.
Well, yes. And it it is a lot of work. And I think where a lot of people get tripped up is, oh, I have to market it. I have to promote it. Well, how do I do that? And they're more afraid of or more intimidated, not afraid of, because that's wrong, but they're more intimidated by the editing. Oh my god, I got to have somebody edit this, and what are they going to think? Oh my gosh, this is awful. Are they going to think I'm a horrible writer? They get twisted into that section when editing is actually the easier part of the process, which is,
Right.
like you said, keeping those sales going, whether it spikes up and then levels off. It's but what happens is, more times than not, is that those sales drop off and they lose the pulse. And you might get a little blip here on the radar every once in a while,
Right.
but it's the goal is to keep that going. So yeah, the promotion.
Well, and so, if you think about it, it's really about how you can stay top of mind with your ideal clients or
Yeah.
ideal readers, right? Depending upon what genre your book is. So, for example, if I've written a memoir, I wrote my memoir not because I want to, shine and polish my ego. It's because I want my story to shed light for someone else who may be feeling lost or maybe experiencing something similar, and to find hope in that experience, right? So if I write it and it sits on my shelf where I'm very proud of it, but it never gets in front of those people, then that's actually selfish, right? And so so even if it's, for example, when we talk about the author business plan, like, what is the goal for the book? That's one of the things we talk about in our cohort, is like, what do you want this book to do?
Right.
And then we structure, like, okay, if that's what you want, then here are some of the things you can do. Maybe you go on podcasts and you talk about your book. Maybe you do a virtual book reading. It's actually been kind of nice since COVID. It's like a lot easier to do a virtual book reading, which gets in front of a lot of other people.
Right.
Maybe you do a virtual launch. Maybe you have a party. But it's the ongoing small things, like I actually just made a social media post about this. It's like 5 easy things that you can do to market your book every day. And one of them is have it in your email signature.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Have it in your title or your bio section of your social media profiles. Put it in your elevator speech if you're an entrepreneur, or an elevator speech that when you talk, have an elevator speech for your book. If you're just, if you just have a goal to be an author and you want people to know that you're an author.
Right.
And, so those are just small little things that people just don't even think about.
And one of the questions I was going to ask you was, and I had worded it this way, and I know what the answer is, but I was curious to know what your response was. Is there a one-size-fits-all process or checklist when it comes to, like, the book launch or promoting your new release? And I think it's so funny that this is where our conversation naturally went. So,
right.
So what is your take on that whole one-size-fits-all promotion?
So we have at Highlander Press, we do have a process that we follow and we guide people through, but that process is tailored. And so, yes, there's a process, but it's not a one-size-fits-all. So if we're launching a historical fiction book, it's going to be slightly different than if we're publishing a thought leader book that's going to tie to someone's business, right? They're very different. Or if it's a memoir, or if it's a children's book, they're just going to have slight nuances. That said, our launch structure is there's a scaffolding, I would say, that we work within, and how we build out the house will be different depending upon the goals of the author, where we want to get and who we want to see the book and how we want to promote it.
Yes. I love the visual, again, the scaffolding around the house, and making it unique to each individual, because we don't all live in the same house.
Right.
If you did, how boring.
Exactly. And the language has to fit the tone of the book, right? If I'm writing a humor book, then the way that I talk about the book and the information I'm going to share, whether via social media or speaking, is going to be humorous, right? It's going to highlight why I'm the best person to write this book, because I'm damn funny, right?
Right. And like you were saying, the promotion is going to be different, and each of us has our strengths and where we feel more comfortable. In getting past the fear of, who's going to want to read this book, getting past that hurdle is huge too. And, stepping into the shoes that, okay, I got this, I can do this, and, forging forward. So anyways, this has truly, truly been a educational conversation full of laughter and, again, the visual. I
might be a writer.
Yes, the writers who are painting the pictures and adding the visual. Oh, so Debbie, thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time, your insights, and of course, clarifying those roles that editors have, as well as the publisher. So, is there anything that you wanted to add to the conversation before we wrap it up?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, first of all, for having me. I love to talk about anything having to do with words. I'm a big word nerd, so thank you for inviting me and for having me as your guest. And I would just say that if you have the nudge to write a book someday, ask yourself, why not today? And just start. Give yourself that gift.
Yes. Yes, writing is a gift, not only to ourselves, but to the reader. So
absolutely.
Where can writers, readers, people who are curious about you, where can they find you
Sure.
on the internet?
I would say if you go, probably the website is the best place to go, because then from there you can go social media, all those other places. And there's tons of resources on the website. Helping you find that right ideal editor and hire that right person, and knowing what kind of editor you need. I have all kinds of resources. So it's HighlanderPressBooks.com, and the /resources is the resource page. So go have at it, grab what you need, and share your stories. We need you.
Yes, I agree. And it's so easy to procrastinate. And so this conversation will help get those like me who have procrastinated. Well, the one memoir is very emotional, and I'm still in it. I have come to the realization that I'm still in it. And so you can't write the memoir. You can write elements of it, but you can't write the actual book when you're still in it. So that one has been set off to the side while I'm writing this other one. And it's like, whoa. So people think it's, you just sit down and pound it out. And that's not necessarily the case either. So,
man, I wish it were.
Wouldn't it be great? Although, in that case, writing a book would lose that personal touch, that gift feel to it. If everybody just sat down and like, okay, here's your next best-selling author, or book, and it'd be like, oh, okay, it'd be like bazooka bubblegum. There's a million of them out there. So, and that tells you how old I am.
I'm right there with you, sister.
2 cents. No, was it a penny? I think it was a penny.
It was a nickel. Oh, yeah, penny candy, penny
and then it went
for bazooka.
Yep. Then it went to the nickel, and then it kind of disappeared off the shelves.
It's very sad.
Yes, yes. And the little comics that used to come with them. So
All the
anyway.
good old days.
Yes, right. Exactly. So again, thank you again, Debbie. I appreciate your time, and we are going to have to do this again, and we'll have to go through, maybe, next time we'll go through something a little more specific, and expand on that, because you and I could definitely, we could sit here for a couple hours and still not complete the conversation. So
I would love that. I would welcome that invitation. So thank you.
You're welcome. I have to say, I had so much fun talking with Debbie that even after our quote unquote official ending for the podcast, of course, our call was still being recorded, and I have to share this little bit of niblet, because when two creative minds get together, there is no telling where we will go, and our imaginations are definitely, they were just on a roll. It was so wonderful to spend time with Debbie and to really get to know her on a more personal level. And yeah, you'll have to listen to what we came up with after, quote, the end of the conversation. And so I've gotten way better at that. I still have some editing to do, but
it's okay. That's why it's part of a conversation, because you're an expert editor as well. So I think that's why this was such a fun conversation.
Well, because I get the lingo, and I have an appreciation. I'm not coming into it blind.
Right.
I'm not talking to you about how do I butcher, that rack of beef there.
Exactly. Thank God, because I'd be like, I don't know.
I don't know either. You take a sharp knife and you poke here and slice.
Hello, butcher.
Exactly. I would, yeah. And I'll tell you, the visuals that you and I came up with, bravo, especially the guy with the,
You'll never forget that.
No, I won't. I love that. I love that. All right, it's 2 minutes after.
Yes, I gotta run. Thank you so much.
You are welcome, Debbie.
Have a good day.
All right, you take care of yourself.
Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye. What a fun way to wrap up this episode of Pen to Paper Press podcast. Debbie was truly a joy to spend time with. We'll do this again, I'm sure. Somewhere down the road, we will do this again. So I'd like to say thank you for spending time with us. Be sure to subscribe to the Pen to Paper Press podcast on your favorite app. Share this episode to inspire writers to write and, publish their works of art. You can find the show notes to this episode at pentopaperpress.com. And leave us a comment while you're there. We would love to read your takeaways. One way to ensure that you receive future podcast episodes is to take a moment and subscribe to the growing newsletter list. I promise I will not clutter your inbox with daily emails. You'll get one once a week. All right, it is time for me to wrap up this podcast. Take care of yourself. And until next time, know that your words have power and your story matters. All right, bye for now.